Today, Bitcoin blasts past $66,000, inching closer to its 2021 all-time high. Over the weekend, we stopped by ETH Denver 2024 to bring you an inside look at the event. And while we were there, we sat down with SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce. She breaks down the SEC's approach to regulating crypto. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos. The price of Bitcoin rising to kick off the week, moving even closer to its all-time high after the rally took a breather over the weekend. As of noon Eastern, Bitcoin traded above $66,000, around $2,000 shy of its all-time high reached in November 2021. Ether advanced 2% to around $3,500, and Bitcoin lifted other crypto tokens with it, particularly meme coins, with Dogecoin jumping more than 28% this morning. Analysts point to their performance as evidence that retail investors who've been sitting on the sidelines for much of the recent crypto rally are starting to jump back into the crypto market. Both Bitcoin and Ether are coming off their best week in almost a year, but their run was on pause over the weekend as the market digested 2 days of steep outflows from the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF that were offset by inflows into other Bitcoin ETFs. One crypto exec told CNBC that big moves now tend to happen during the normal trading week with the birth of 9 new Bitcoin ETFs. Long-term investors are confident that the combination of increasing demand for ETFs and a tighter supply expected after the April halving event will push the price of Bitcoin to a new all-time high. Crypto has also been getting a slight bid from the stock market, where the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite reached an all-time high on Friday. Some crypto-focused stocks are riding the Bitcoin wave, with Coinbase and MicroStrategy rising nearly 7% and 20% respectively. The miners, however, are all down between 0.5% and 6% as of 12 p.m. Okay, let's talk about ETH Denver 2024, which wrapped up over the weekend. I was there and got the chance to speak to some of crypto's biggest developers and some first-time attendees about why the event is attracting so much attention. I'm here at ETH Denver 2024 at a time when things are looking pretty good for its namesake crypto network.
The energy is electric in this particular one. Things are feeling very positive in the ecosystem.
Now, part of this has to do with a major upgrade coming to Ethereum in a few weeks that's expected to slash transaction costs by 90%, while vastly improving profitability of the companies built on the blockchain.
The thing that is happening with Denkun is we're going to create a whole new kind of storage on Ethereum that's purpose-built for layer 2s like Base. And what that means, it means that right now we pay a ton to Ethereum, and we're going to pay a lot less, which is going to lower the fees for everyone, because Ethereum basically is going to build a product purpose-built for us.
There's also a lot of optimism that a spot Ether ETF could follow the immensely popular spot Bitcoin ETFs approved earlier this year. Now, SEC commissioners might be attending this event, but ETH Denver has really tried to keep the sense that it's underground and for coders, not Wall Street.
I feel like the wave and the future is this, but it's very early. So for people of color, it's very important for us to be in these spaces and learn as much as possible.
In terms of the vibe on the ground here in Denver, this festival, as organizers like to call it, started as something intimate, but has quickly ballooned to 20,000 attendees, all focused on what's next for Ethereum. What's also different this year, more people are talking about the intersection of AI and Web3. The CEO of Near was deep in the AI world before jumping into crypto. He was actually one of the researchers who introduced transformers, literally the T in ChatGPT. That research is what laid the groundwork for the LLMs of today, like Google's Gemini.
When we started, we were an AI company. We were doing data crowdsourcing, and we actually wanted to use blockchain because we needed to pay people for data crowdsourcing we were doing. And we had, students in China, in Eastern Europe, who were working for us pretty much, but they didn't have bank accounts. Sending money from US into Eastern Europe and China is complicated. And so we actually wanted to use blockchain as a way to facilitate that data collection.
We spoke to several more of the biggest leaders in Web3 here in Denver, and we'll be sharing those full interviews with you on CNBC Crypto World all this week. Our main story, last Thursday at the start of ETH Denver, I moderated a fireside interview with SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce, where she discussed the agency's approach to regulating crypto and enforcement actions against major players in the space. Right after that, I sat down with the commissioner to continue the conversation and get her take on what needs to change for regulating crypto in the U.S. So here at ETH Denver, 20,000 people coming into town for this event. A lot of them are the coders and the builders. who are helping to develop this ecosystem. Now, yesterday it was standing room only at your fireside chat, and I think that that really speaks to the fact that you're seen as crypto's staunchest ally among US regulators. You haven't been shy about critiquing the SEC's approach so far to regulating the crypto space, and I guess my first question to you is just what's not working right now and what needs to change?
I think what's not working is that I'm here at ETH Denver, that these developers need to be thinking about what the regulatory structure is because it's so unclear. So I think what needs to change is that we need to develop some clear rules so that these people can do their developing and understand what the framework is that they're working in.
It seems like there's a very clear direction from the top right now. And so what does the SEC need to do to become either more comfortable with crypto or change their stance? Is that a change at the top in terms of the chairman? Is it a change in the White House? Is it switching out commissioners? What has to happen to the composition of the SEC to see progress on this front?
I don't think the personnel has to change, it's just the policy has to change, and that requires having some open dialogues with people who are explaining what they're trying to build and trying to think about how that intersects rationally with our framework, not just come in after the fact with enforcement actions.
And that is part of the problem, right? Like there have been no hard and fast rules given to us by Congress. Certain senators and congressmen have certainly tried to push forward on crypto legislation. And in the absence of that, it's really just been this regulation by enforcement approach from the SEC. The CFTC has been another agency policing the space. And I suppose my question is, like, what policy makes sense at this point? You've got the safe harbor proposal that you were floating as early as 2020. There have been competing bills. Is there anything that you're optimistic about in terms of legislation that might impose hard and fast rules that will give guidance to these coders?
I think there's been some good effort in Congress to try to think holistically about the space, which is helpful. But at bottom, what we need to do is make sure that there are disclosures so that people who are buying things can figure out whether they want to buy what they want to buy. And we need to take advantage of the technology, which allows for an unprecedented amount of transparency. It allows for equal access. Those are things we should be harnessing for good instead of treating as if they're bad.
Now, earlier this month, there was a change, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a change in the definition of what a dealer is, this broker-dealer rule. And some people who work in the DeFi space are concerned because it seems as though it's going to rope in more DeFi developers, potentially impact what they're doing with DEXs as well. What changes for them?
I think it is. In fact, I was just having a conversation with some people who are worried about just that rule and about the implications for example, liquidity pools and liquidity providers and liquidity pools. And it is unknown at this moment. And when I tried at the time we adopted the rule to get some clarity around that, there are a lot more questions than there are answers, unfortunately.
Now, a big topic of conversation with respect to the SEC and its intersection with the world of crypto is the spot Bitcoin ETF debate. It ultimately took a court ruling to get those applications to the finish line. Is it going to take the same thing for a spot Ether ETF to see those applicants given approval?
Well, look, it's hard for me to know. We're in the process of considering some of these applications now, but what I do hope is that the court decision in the Bitcoin product just can help us take a little reset toward how we think about these crypto issues and apply precedent the same way we would apply it to non-crypto products. That's what I'm hoping for.
You know, the SEC has suffered a couple of losses in the court system. There's Grayscale, which is what we were just talking about with respect to the spot Bitcoin ETF debate. There was also Ripple. Internally, how is that going over? Are some people actually happy about it because it forced the hand and it perhaps changed the direction the SEC would have taken otherwise?
I can't talk about ongoing enforcement actions, but I can say that sometimes these are really difficult legal questions and we're all trying to wrestle through them, but I hope we can all approach them with greater legal precision, and sometimes that takes courts to help us do that.
The U.S. has obviously struggled to come up with hard and fast rules. We've seen other jurisdictions move faster on that front in terms of Singapore, the UAE, the EU with MiCA. basically these countries establishing legal frameworks to guide the space, but it feels like the U.S. is actually the only cop enforcing rules. So is that actually a benefit of, even if it's over policing the space, as some people at this conference would say, has there been a net benefit in terms of having some sort of crypto cop who is involved in helping to police the ecosystem?
It is helpful to have someone who's watching out for people who are taking crypto and using it as an excuse for conducting frauds. So certainly we played a positive role there. But I think that on balance, we could better help the ecosystem be a safer, healthier place by having clear rules, which would help us figure out where to spend our enforcement resources, but would also help people figure out how to stay on the right side of the line.
So many builders who were once quite public with our identities are nervous about being on stage at an event like this, just because it's unclear what sort of ramifications there might be, if they're going to be ensnared in some sort of legal action because of the work that they're doing with open source code. What would you tell to somebody who's a coder who's excited about jumping into crypto but doesn't know what they're safe to actually build?
I'm so happy that people are willing to develop and build in this space, and we will get to a better place. So we just need to be thinking now about what a good rule set would look like. So let's look forward to the day when we change course, when we recognize that our American values, right, that really foster innovation, and think about what that right regulatory framework would look like.
Last question for you. What keeps you up at night when you think about what the SEC is doing with respect to the crypto sector?
There's a lot that keeps me up at night, but I mean, it goes back to this theme of not providing clarity and therefore driving people who might otherwise be building in this space to say, you know what, I'm going to build in some other space. I'm going to do something different with my life. It's turning people away from what they otherwise might want to do with their lives.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today, but we will be back again tomorrow with more interviews from ETH Denver, and we will see you then.